Number 11. Ali Spice. Known to her followers as Ali Spice, 21-year-old Ali Dulin had a TikTok fan base of nearly 1 million when she lost her life in a car accident in 2022. She was among 3 people who were killed when a driver who was traveling in the wrong direction crashed into their vehicle near DeLand, Florida. The driver who caused the wreck fled the scene on foot and managed to evade law enforcement. Authorities still hadn't made any arrests or released the driver's name 7 weeks later. According to the Florida Highway Patrol, the crash was still under investigation and they were waiting on lab results. Frustrated with the pace of the investigation, Dulin's family put a notice out on Facebook accusing a man named Tom Petrie of being the driver responsible for the crash. But he told a reporter from the Daytona Beach News-Journal that law enforcement confirmed he wasn't the driver and denied hiding from the police. Around 1,000 people attended Dulin's funeral, according to her father, who told the news outlet that roughly 20% of the attendees came from out of state. The former Hooters waitress was known among her followers for spreading positivity and encouragement to people struggling with addiction and abuse, and for taking the time to respond to her direct messages, making her a rarity among influencers. Number 10. Alexis Sharkey. When 26-year-old Alexis Sharkey stopped responding to her phone the day after Thanksgiving in 2020, her friends and family immediately became worried that something bad might have happened to her. As an influencer who sold organic health products and shared most of her life with her followers, she was never away from her phone for very long. Word of the woman's disappearance spread fast, with some speculating that her husband, 48-year-old Tom Sharkey, was somehow involved, though he adamantly denied having anything to do with it. The next morning, the young woman was found naked and lifeless in some bushes along a service road in Houston. While authorities awaited autopsy results, Tom told reporters that his wife wasn't as happy in real life as she acted on social media, but he said that they had a good marriage and that he was cooperating with detectives. 7 weeks after Alexis's body was discovered, a medical examiner ruled that she'd been strangled to death. By then, Tom had relocated to Georgia. A few months later, he agreed to meet with investigators to provide a DNA sample. But when the time came, he was nowhere to be found, and then he moved to Florida. In addition to being suspicious of Tom's evasiveness, detectives discovered a history of domestic violence between him and Alexis, and her friends claimed that she'd mentioned the possibility of a divorce shortly before her death. During a press conference, Houston Police Sergeant Michael Burrow said that there was evidence that the couple had separated and that Tom wanted to reconcile, but Alexis was already done with the relationship. Burrow also explained that there was never any bombshell evidence against Tom, but that the man's behavior over time and his evolving stories eventually led law enforcement to suspect he was somehow involved in Alexis's death. After concluding that Tom was the only person who had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill Alexis, authorities obtained a warrant for his arrest. They paid a visit to his daughter's house in Fort Myers, Florida, where he was staying, but he ran upstairs and took his own life before they could take him into custody. Alexis's death is now considered a closed case, although limited details have been released to the public. Number 9. Cara Santorelli. 18-year-old Cara Santorelli gained a sizable TikTok following during her senior year of high school. She was just months away from graduating in early 2023 when she posted a video touting her impeccable driving record. The footage showed the young woman in her vehicle and was captioned, "When they try to call me a bad driver, but I've never hit a person or an actual car." Just a few days later, her SUV was struck by an oncoming Chevy sedan that was driving the wrong way along Highway 29 in Escambia County, Florida. Santorelli was reportedly killed instantly in the head-on collision, which happened at around 1 a.m. on St. Patrick's Day. The sedan burst into flames, killing the other driver involved in the crash as well. In the days following the accident, Santorelli's post about never being in a car wreck went viral, garnering about 15 million views. The tragedy serves as a disappointing reminder of how even the most safety-conscious motorists can tragically lose their lives due to another person's reckless driving. Number 8. Josh Newman. American skateboarder and influencer Josh Newman experienced a life-changing moment when he first saw the Northern Lights during a sponsored trip to Iceland in 2022. The 22-year-old, who ran one of YouTube's most popular skateboarding channels, was flying in a small Cessna with 3 others to create commercial content for the Belgian fashion brand Suspicious Antwerp when suddenly the aircraft vanished. They didn't send out a distress signal before the plane disappeared from radar over Lake Thingvallavatn, Iceland's second largest lake. More than 1,000 members of Iceland's search and rescue organization participated in the ensuing search, and the submerged plane was found with help from autonomous submarine and sonar technology. At the time of the discovery, authorities announced that poor weather had prevented them from sending divers into the lake to retrieve the bodies. In a statement on Newman's Instagram page, his family wrote that he died doing what he loved and that he'd seen the Northern Lights shortly before the plane crashed. During the experience, he'd made the comment, "This is the happiest day of my life." The cause of the plane crash was, unfortunately, never disclosed to the public. Number 7. Abby Choi. When 28-year-old Hong Kong-based model, socialite and internet celebrity Abby Choi failed to pick her daughter up at school in early 2023, her family reported her missing. Her last known whereabouts were in a car driven by her hired driver, who also happened to be her former brother-in-law. By then, Choi had been featured in several major magazines, including Elle, Harper's Bazaar, and Vogue, and she had over 100,000 Instagram followers. Just a week earlier, she'd been living it up at Paris Fashion Week. It was certainly possible that perhaps she was met with foul play at the hands of an obsessed fan. But investigators found answers much closer to home when they looked into her ex-husband, Alex Kwong, and the rest of her former in-laws. Choi had stayed on peaceful terms with her ex after their divorce several years prior, but she'd recently become entangled with the family in a dispute over a luxury property she'd purchased for her in-laws that she was planning to sell. She promised to find the Kwongs a new home, but her father-in-law, Kwong Kao, objected to the sale of the home. The investigation into her disappearance led police to an apartment in a coastal village that Kwong Kao, Alex Kwong, and his brother Anthony Kwong Kong Kit had recently rented. Inside, police found what The Independent described as a splatter-proof body disposal workshop. Coverings had been laid down on the floor and over the walls, and the apartment contained an electric saw, a meat grinder, face shields, raincoats, and other materials that authorities say the trio of men used to dismember Choi's body. Pieces of the woman were unfortunately found in the fridge, a pot of soup, and various other places throughout the apartment. And visible damage to the back of her skull indicated that she'd been bludgeoned to death. 7 people have been arrested in connection with Choi's murder so far, including Alex Kwong, his brother and father. Her former mother-in-law, Jenny Lee Siew-hyung, also faces a charge for preventing the course of justice, and 3 others were indicted with aiding and abetting a murder suspect. Number 6. Alexis Ware. Alexis Ware's popularity on social media was growing when she began acting differently during a visit to her mother's house in South Carolina in 2022. By then, the 29-year-old single mother of 2 had already commented on how she received messages from creepy men on Instagram. But she seemed especially withdrawn during the visit, and someone kept calling her phone over and over. When her mother, Alberta Simpkins, asked Alexis who was calling, she referred to the person as the devil, but didn't go any further into detail about their identity. She also said that she was worried she was being followed, and that she didn't think she'd live to see her 30th birthday, which was just 2 months away. But oddly enough, she refused to say why she felt that way. Alexis and her mom spoke over video chat one last time the day after she returned home from her visit. A few hours later, she went to a 7-Eleven store in Anderson, about 40 miles, 64 kilometers from her home in Greenville, to exchange her kids with their father, TJ Patterson. Surveillance footage showed what appeared to be a peaceful conversation between Alexis and TJ before the 2 of them drove off in separate directions. TJ later told investigators that Alexis was planning to follow him to his mother's house, but that instead, she turned and went the opposite way. Her car was seen outside an apartment complex in Anderson later that night and was also spotted by a highway camera in Augusta, Georgia. The vehicle was found abandoned and covered in mud a few days later on a remote dirt road in McCormick County, South Carolina. Inside the vehicle, police found her cell phone, purse, and a bag of clothes. A hair bonnet she'd been wearing the night she vanished was also located nearby. To this day, Alexa's disappearance remains shrouded in mystery. Her mother continues to hold out hope that her daughter might still be alive and doesn't think TJ Patterson is involved. She's convinced that whoever was incessantly calling Alexis that weekend had something to do with whatever happened to her, and the missing woman's family has also expressed concerns that her growing online popularity may have played a role in her disappearance. They're hoping that someone comes forward with information on her whereabouts so the mystery can finally be put to rest. Number 5. Raquel da Silva Mora Medeiros. When 41-year-old Brazilian dentist and social media influencer Raquel da Silva Mora Medeiros failed to return home one evening in 2022, her concerned family filed a missing persons report and put the word out on social media. She left the town of Jiparana in Rondônia state at around 10 p.m. on October 16th. Her vehicle was captured on surveillance footage 20 minutes later as it arrived in Jaru, but her trail went cold from there. A major search effort ensued, but initially nothing helpful to the investigation was uncovered. But after 2 days, a helicopter spotted her overturned Chevy Onyx in a patch of vegetation. The vehicle had veered off the road and plummeted down a cliff, and Raquel's remains were found inside. While announcing the discovery of her body, authorities made it clear that they suspected no foul play and that they believe Raquel's death was the result of a tragic accident. They said that it took a while to find her because it was difficult to spot the overturned vehicle in the overgrown ravine. Since 2017, Raquel had worked at a healthcare center in Araquemes, where she was well liked by her co-workers. She posted photos of her dental work on social media and also shared her passions for traveling, fitness, and spending time with friends and family. Number 4. Dannylamoy. Rhode Island-based influencer Dannylamoy gained a following on Telegram where he championed the use of a veterinary drug called ivermectin, which was used to treat COVID-19 during the early days of the pandemic. He began taking the controversial drug daily in 2012 to treat Lyme disease and praised it for its healing effects, which he claimed enabled him to stop all other treatments. Ivermectin is an anti-parasitic drug commonly used in horses and other animals. Many members of the group Lamoy became famous among considered it to be a miracle drug for almost every imaginable disease or ailment, believing that these conditions are caused by parasites. It's especially popular among anti-vaxxers, and some members of Lamoy's group even talked about giving veterinary-grade doses of the drug to their children. But modern science strongly indicates that there's no therapeutic value to ivermectin, especially since many of the conditions people have started taking it for aren't caused by parasites. There's also evidence to suggest that the drug is dangerous for humans. Countless major health organizations have warned against taking veterinary-grade ivermectin, including the Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the European Medicines Agency, and the World Health Organization, just to name a few. Some of the group members who took Lamoy's advice complained of serious side effects like seizures, coma, lung issues, heart problems, vomiting, migraines, and severe pain in various parts of the body. And when Lamoy suddenly died in early 2023, one might think that his followers took it as a sign of ivermectin's dangers. Some did, but many continued to throw caution to the wind and remained in a state of denial. In a statement, Lamoy's family revealed that his heart had grown to double its normal size and that it was overworked. They mentioned that the family has a history of heart disease, but didn't speculate on whether Lamoy's use of ivermectin or his decision to quit other treatments may have played a role in his death. His most devout fans became angry at people who even suggested that the drug might be to blame, and they accused those individuals of spreading misinformation, something that ironically health officials have been accusing them of doing for years now. At the very least, Lamoy's death should have given group administrators enough pause to think twice about what they were promoting. but they've continued to promote the use of ivermectin and remain convinced that there was no way it had anything to do with his death. Number 3. Mercedes Moore. Better known to her Instagram followers as Mercedes Moore, 33-year-old Janae Gagnier had some serious social media cred. She started off as a dancer and transitioned into being a model, and eventually became popular enough to make a living from her sponsors. It wasn't entirely unusual for her to be seen partying with celebrities, and people recognized her pretty much everywhere she went throughout the Houston area. An influencer with 3 million followers never goes long without checking their phone, which is why Janae's family found it odd when she went radio silent in August of 2021. Her father, Mark Gagnier, eventually became concerned enough to go to her apartment and check on her, but when he arrived, the door was locked, so he kicked it in. He found Janae dead at the bottom of her staircase and initially thought she'd had a terrible accident of some kind. That assumption changed when Mark entered his daughter's bedroom and found a man with a knife stuck in his neck. The man, who was later identified as 34-year-old Kevin Alexander Accorto, was still alive, but barely, and eventually he died from his injury. Bizarre messages scrawled across Janae's wall with pink lipstick offered some of the only clues about the circumstances leading up to her murder. One of the ramblings stated, "Janae led me to think she cared about me, but wore another man's ring," while another said, "I was used for money." An autopsy concluded that Janae died from strangulation and a traumatic concussion, and investigators found no evidence that her connection with Accorto extended beyond social media. Mark later told local station KTRK that he'd warned his daughter repeatedly about the dangers of social media and his fear that a crazy person might become obsessed with her and stalk or harm her. Unfortunately for him, his worst fears came true. Number 2. Sophia Chung and Erica Leanne Tavares. Hong Kong-based influencer Sophia Chung's Instagram profile headline read, "Life should be fun, not dumb." She was best known for her scenic and sometimes risque photos taken at popular hiking destinations. During a visit to Hong Kong's Ha Pak Lai Park in 2021, a 32-year-old nature enthusiast tried to take a selfie at the edge of a waterfall, but sadly she lost her footing and fell into a 16-foot deep, 5 meters pool of water along the Tsing Dai stream. Emergency responders rushed Chung to the emergency room, where she was later declared dead. The tragedy came just days after another influencer fell from the top of a waterfall halfway across the globe in Mexico. 23-year-old Erica Leanne Tavares was visiting the popular tourist spot in the state of Chiapas during a trip to Mexico from Portugal when she tried to take a selfie and fell through a crevice. She dropped 24 feet, 7.3 meters to the water below, and was swept away by a strong current. Tavares was found dead in an overgrown area following a 12-hour search and recovery operation. Sadly, these incidents only represented the latest among a growing number of selfie-related deaths that have occurred along the advent of social media and the desire for popularity. In addition to the desire of internet fame causing people to put themselves in harm's way, responders often have to put themselves in danger to rescue those who survive and to retrieve those who don't. One study even concluded that selfies kill 20 times as many people as sharks, suggesting that perhaps it's not always worth it to capture the perfect photo. Being an influencer can come with a lot of perks, including travel and high-paying opportunities, but there's also a downside to it, like the sacrifice of privacy, safety concerns, and the pressure to keep followers interested in your content. Number 1. Tiba Alali. In early 2023, a 22-year-old Iraqi YouTube star named Tiba Alali was killed by her father during an ongoing dispute with her family. The young woman had relocated to Turkey and was visiting relatives in southern Iraq's Diwania province in an attempt to resolve the dispute when the horrifying tragedy occurred. Voice recordings that are said to contain conversations between Al-Ali and her father suggest that he was upset about her living in Turkey alone, but little else is known about the disagreement that the family was experiencing. One source claims that their differences date as far back as 2015, and that Al-Ali had been in Turkey since 2017, which was when she refused to return to Iraq at the end of a family vacation. When she finally traveled there to try settling the dispute for good, she was attacked and strangled in her bed while she was sleeping. Her father reportedly confessed to the murder, which has been classified by the media as an honor killing. Alali's death sparked protests across Iraq, where there are no laws against domestic violence, a problem that only seems to be worsening in the country. Past attempts to pass legislation have failed, and for now, the law continues to be disturbingly lenient toward perpetrators of so-called honor killings. If a company with a disturbing reputation for alleged ethical violations offered to sponsor your dream vacation in exchange for promoting it on social media, would you accept the opportunity? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.